Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to follow the soul of humanity. The first soul inside of a person that we know of is Adam's soul. There could have been Homo sapiens before. Certainly archaeologists feel there were Homo sapiens, but they would have been nothing more than kind of hairless primates. We ourselves have everything in common with primates. If you put us in an MRI and then you put an orangutan in an MRI next to us, we would come out more or less the same thing as them. There's nothing so unique about human beings over primates, except for the fact that you have a soul. You might say that the faculties of speech, that's unique over primates. Primates can't talk. I would argue that it's because you have a soul that you can talk. It's your soul that's actually giving you the ability of speech, and that's what our sages say. It's only because of the soul that you can speak. I was once sitting next to an archaeologist on an airplane from Hebrew University, and I was thinking, because I knew I was going to sleep really tight on that plane. I sleep a lot on planes. I can't really stay awake on planes. And so, but I was thinking, like, I don't want to lose this opportunity. Here I have like a world-class archaeologist on the plane right next to me. I can ask anything. So I finally came up with the question. Such a great question. I asked her, is there any human-built structure that predates Adam? Is there any human-built structure that's older than 6,000 years? And I was thinking to myself while I sat there in my seat that there may have been Homo sapiens, but a Homo sapien with a soul, it would build. Human beings like building. Like anywhere humans have been, they build. And why did I think of building? Because if they built, it would last. Especially if they built with stone. So as long as the stones were somewhat large, it would make it through any kind of weather, any kind of situation. The building would last. And so she sat silently after I asked the question, are there any human-built structures preceding 6,000 years? She sat there silently and thinking, and now they have, I mean, if you're an archaeologist, you're talking about things way older than 6,000 years in their story, in their narrative of Homo sapien and of man. And she thinks and she thinks and she thinks and she thinks, and she finally looks up and says, you know, I don't think there's one human-built structure that predates 6,000 years. And I said to her, well, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that our Torah says that human beings, you know, that Adam was from 6,000 years ago. And the world actually has no structures that precede it, meaning there may have been Homo sapiens beforehand, but they didn't have souls, and no souls means you're basically a primate. And only once the soul's in, that's where you start noticing human-built structures in this, on Earth. And so she said, yeah, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. And then I fell asleep for the next 10 hours. And we arrived in JFK, and that was it. And about 5 months later, I get an email from her. I'd given her my card. And she asked me to be the rabbi at the chuppah of her children. Which was pretty cool. Because she would have just rented a rabbi. You know, you get these rent-a-rabbis here, you know, the secular folk. Anyway, so Adam seems to be the first being with a soul. And the Torah says like that. If you look in the actual Torah, Adam's the only being that has two creations. Everything else says God says, let there be, and there was. Let there be vegetation, there was vegetation. Let there be, you know, fish, there was fish. Let there be fowl, there was fowl. Let there be animals, there was animals. With Adam, it says, let us make man. And then later, when it goes through the story, it says that God then blew a living soul, nishmas chaim, neshama, nishmas chaim, into this man, into the man. And that becomes Adam, and that becomes what it is to be a human being. Now, this soul that God blew into Adam has nothing to do with the body of Adam, so to speak. It's just in him. But if you were to dissect Adam or put Adam in an MRI, nothing would show up on the screen. There would be no soul there at all. There would just be Adam, physically. And in fact, all of you people, if we'd put you in an MRI, nowhere would it show up that you have a soul. This is how the Russians, in their arrogance, said that we've dissected a whole human being and we did not find a soul. That was their proof that there's no soul. What were they expecting? That the soul would be physical? Adam was split into Adam and Eve, and then they had children, and the soul started kind of fracturing, or going into sparks of into different people. But the ultimate soul of Adam and Eve that they had was put into, meaning the power of their soul was put into latency when they ate from the fruit. And they lost their spiritual position. Meaning the spiritual position that God created them to be in was lost with the eating of the fruit. It was only retrieved in the time of Abraham. And the Kabbalists call Abraham Adam. Do you know that, Kim? Kabbalists call Abraham Adam. Why? Because Adam restored the soul. Abraham restored the soul of Adam. And later came along the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, and then they are called Adam. The Jewish people at Mount Sinai are called Adam. And they're like Adam before the eating of the fruit of, in the Garden of Eden. Now, how did Adam lose that special soul that he had? He still had a soul, but he lost the special aspect of it. How did he lose it? Because he sinned. Adam sinned. The same soul of the Jewish people that we got at Mount Sinai, that added soul that we all got at Mount Sinai, how do we hold on to it? By guarding it, protecting it, and keeping the Torah. How do we lose it? We lose it by doing transgression. When a Jew transgresses the Torah, so he or she loses that special added soul. And that's what we discussed yesterday, and that is that a human being, a Jew, is above the zodiac. We are beyond our horoscopes, usually. But if a Jew, God forbid, is ignoring Torah and its laws, so then they actually get back into the regular human being. They're actually like a regular human being. And now their horoscope does have quite a strong influence. So let me say that again. When a Jewish person is guarding themselves from the negative commandments, and she is on the up and up and being careful with the commandments. You're taking copious notes over there? Thanks so much. So when a Jew is keeping the commandments, and she's being careful, especially with which commandments, the positive or the negatives? Negative commandments, very good. They're being careful with the negative commandments. They maintain this very highly lofty soul, and they're like above the zodiac, and therefore the zodiac has no impact on them. We learn this from Abraham, as we said, who was called Adam, that Abraham was told by God that he would have a second son. Now, Abraham said to God, God, listen, I know my zodiac. I know the stars, I know the horoscope. According to where the stars are, I'm not going to have another son. There's only one son that's going to be there. And at that point, God said, oh yeah, Abraham? And he sang to him the following song. Take your protein pill and put your helmet on. And Abraham started rising and rising and rising up above. God literally took Abraham up above the zodiac. He was like watching the stars and seeing the solar system, and he was being taken higher and higher and higher. And at that point, God made his heavenly body was Jupiter. You could see Jupiter down there. And God went, whoosh, and Jupiter went, whoosh, shot to another spot in the sky. And Abraham looked at God and said, guess I'll be having another son, won't I? God says, yeah. And that was it. And he had Isaac. Not only did he have Isaac, but he had a bunch of other kids with Keturah at the end, after Sarah died. And he learned an amazing lesson there, that we are above nature. We're above the zodiac. And in that lesson, God also had Abraham was also commanded the circumcision, to cut with the normal natural body, and to take it to the next level on the 8th day, representing supernature. That the Jews are actually these supernatural beings. One of the ways we know we're supernatural is that on the Sabbath, we're actually supposed to break free of the natural world. See, normally you manipulate things in the physical world. You take raw to cooked, you turn off and on things, you touch computer keyboards and stuff like that. Anyway, so Abraham's taken outside the zodiac to be beyond nature, and so too the Jewish people are totally outside of nature. Your horoscope's meaningless to you. But if a Jew is not keeping the negative commandments, meaning they're transgressing the negative commandments, they're doing what they shall not do, then what happens is your zodiac comes right back into play, and you become like any other person. You lose that specialness, that unique level of Adam that should be yours, and you should really be above the zodiac. If I can offer a little more incentive to be above the zodiac, well, I'll give you a couple incentives. One we discussed yesterday. One incentive to be above the zodiac is that on the days you shouldn't go out, like when it says, you know, if you looked at your horoscope and it would say like, don't go out today, like it's a bad day for you. Do any of you even read such things? No. So here you are going out on a day you should have stayed in. Or it says don't do business on such a day. And there you are closing a deal right on the day you shouldn't be doing any business. It's not good, man. Yeah? So the beauty of being beyond the zodiac, when you are careful with the 365 negative commandments, you're now beyond your zodiac, your horoscope's meaningless. You can make all the business deals you want. You don't pay any attention to such things. It's irrelevant to you what the stars say on your particular birth date disposition. It's irrelevant to you. So that's one, a serious incentive to be very careful of the negative commandments, because then you're already off of that. Another big incentive is your moods. Your moods are, you'll notice that your moods don't care what day it is. You ever notice that you can go into a Shabbos table in a low mood, and everyone's like, good Shabbos, Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. You know, Yom Zeh Mechubah. And you're like, if one more person says good Shabbos to me, I'm going to punch him in the nose. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you're just not in the mood. And it's Shabbos, but you're just not in Shabbos. And so, or it could be Sukkot. That's really painful. To be at like some raging Sukkot party, and you're just not in Sukkot mode, and everyone's being all light and fluffy, and you're just angry. And like, what are we doing in this thatched hut? You know? Why are we in this shanty town? You know, and what's everyone so darn happy about in here? Could even happen on Purim. Purim, everyone's like getting all crazy and wild, and you're just like, go away. You know? Aren't you coming to the Purim party? No, just leave me alone. So another incentive for being out of the zodiac range is that your moods are actually also riding the zodiac. Your moods are riding your horoscopic disposition. Have you ever thought about that? What makes moods come and go? Certainly nothing in particular. They just seem to be on their own track, don't they? You kind of wake up in them, and they... What's that? Fire firing neurons. Yeah, but the moods, they seem to be on their own track. They don't care what's going on. You can have the best news in the world, and when you're in a low mood, do you care about good news? In a low mood? No. Think about it, you're in a low mood, and someone tells you they're engaged. You're like, that's good, I wish my marriage was good, just kidding. I'm kidding. Someone tells you, or you'll be in a high mood. You're in a high mood, and someone tells you bad news. You're just like, too bad for them, Sorry about your dead dog, Let's move on, You see, your moods don't care about that stuff. They're on their own system. Yeah. So, what system are your moods on? The answer is your moods are on a zodiac system. They are connecting to the zodiac. Now, we're not discussing how high and low you go. The amplitudes are congenital. They have to do with your family. But the actual, when the ups hit and when the downs hit and all the it's called frequencies. When the frequencies of those waves come and go, that's all zodiac oriented. Well, gee, that's an incentive. If I am really careful with precision and accuracy, avoiding the 365 negative commandments, I get to bust out of my zodiac. And once I'm busted out of my zodiac, my moods lose their swing. I don't have any moods. I'm just clear and free to experience life. So then why do Jews have such big waves? Like Jews have pretty big waves. Why do Jews have such big waves if...
Keep going in and out of the zodiac?
Maybe. The answer is, maybe for you, but the answer is, for us, is that if you look at the Jewish calendar, it's very wavy. A week looks like this, it's Shabbos, and then it's like Wednesday, and it's Shabbos, and it's Wednesday. You have parts of the calendar, you have Rosh Hashanah till Sukkot is just like, and then it's like winter time, and then there's like Hanukkah, and then it's like Purim, and then it's like, did I just skip Tu B'Shvat? That's because everybody skips Tu B'Shvat, okay? But my Tu B'Shvat Seder, which you should all come to, is an experience. Last year we finished at 7:30 in the morning. It was a 10-hour experience. Whoa. It was full of all kinds of botany. And we had every kind of thing that grows on earth in that particular experience. And we finished at 7:30. We finished in the mikveh, but before that, we were dancing around a tree in the courtyard outside my house, and people were like heading up to shul, looking at, it was like 6:30 in the morning. They're looking. There's a bunch of knuckleheads dancing around a tree at 6:30 in the morning on Tu B'Shvat. There goes Glaser. Yeah, he's at it again. And anyway, but we had a 10-hour Tu B'Shvat Seder. Really quite amazing. Anyway, so Sukkah is super high. Then it's winter. Oh, it's getting darker. It's getting colder. Hanukkah. Tu B'Shvat. Purim. Pesach. And then that drops us down. Then we build and build and build towards Shavuos. Oh no, the 3 weeks, Tammuz. Crash, bang, smash them up. And then Elul, we build our way back up to Rosh Hashanah, on its way up to Sukkot. And so there's plenty of waves. It's not that we're not supposed to have waves. We are supposed to have waves, but we're supposed to be riding the Jewish calendar. Those are the waves that we're supposed to be riding. Our sages bring us that the biggest leaders of the Jewish people, the biggest spiritual luminaries of the Jewish world, had the most intense amplitude psychologically. Yeah, do you know that some of the Hasidic masters, the modern psychologists and universities who've studied the Hasidic movement, have said that they were totally bipolar. Like if you actually study the lives of these people, they were totally bipolar, yet suffered no bipolarism. They just had all the symptoms of bipolar without any of the problems of it. And when it was Sukkot, that Rebbe was like, wow. And when it was Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, the destruction of the temple, you couldn't peel that Rebbe off the floor with a spatula. He was glued to the floor, sobbing, blubbering, while the rest of the Hasidim were just like, because they didn't have those amplitudes. They don't have the Rebbe amplitudes. I know a couple Rebbes, like real Rebbes. There are not too many real Rebbes these days, but I know a couple real Rebbes. Whoa, they're all over the place. But with the holidays, not with their own random stuff. It's not like they come into Shabbos and they're like, if one more person says good Shabbos to me, I'm going to kick them in the you-know-what. You know, like, they got thousands of Hasidim coming by saying good Shabbos, 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 good Shabbos. Every Chassid goes by. They're not dealing with the stuff we deal with on a Shabbos. Meaning these random moods. So that's another big incentive to be like super careful with halacha. Super careful. You gotta be so careful. And the more careful we are, the less will be the influence of our zodiac disposition, the less influence of your horoscope, and the less influence of our moods on our lives, so that we can actually just ride the Jewish calendar. Now, because we're talking about heavenly bodies and their relationship to one another when we talk zodiac, I can't necessarily promise that this will work outside of Israel. Because we are discussing heavenly bodies, we're discussing geography here. I mean, it may be cosmology and like the bigger picture of geography, but it is ultimately geography. And the whole Torah and all its mitzvahs were created for those who dwell in the land of Israel. It's really all for us who live here. They're to be fulfilled in the land of Israel. When you keep mitzvahs outside the land of Israel, you're basically practicing for when you're back in the land of Israel. So I can't promise, like, just because you were so careful and precise with your 365 negative commandments, and you live in Brooklyn or Muncie or Philadelphia or LA or Baltimore or England or South Africa or where are you from, do you know? Croatia. Or Croatia. I can't promise that you're necessarily going to feel so beyond the zodiac, even though you're keeping the commandments, because it's the commandments on the ultimate Kabbalistic level are created for the land of Israel and for the people living in the land of Israel. And so I'm sure it helps, but I don't know if it really does the trick. Living in the land of Israel, though, it really does work. You can actually stay on a nice cruising altitude and just hang with the Jewish calendar, which is pretty intense in itself. It's not like your life lacks intensity. It's very intense. It's just intense to the tune of Torah, as opposed to just kind of random storm winds blowing through, which seem to have nothing to do with the calendar. Clear? Now, I'd just like to get into for a minute about the psychology of what would ever get someone to not anyway keep the Torah, and meaning the negative commandments. Why in the world would we ignore the negative commandments in the first place? Like, there's only one way you could ever ignore a negative commandment. And we know a lot of Jews ignore the negative commandments. You know, they just feel it's mythology. They feel Judaism is like Torah's mythology. It's like some kind of old throwback, you know, it's religion or something. And certainly no one wants to be religious. So why is it that people ignore it? And the answer is that the only way to ignore the commandments, to ignore especially the negative commandments, the thou shalt nots, is to be totally unclear that God is here. You have to be totally unclear that God is here. You have to be fuzzy, vague, full of doubt. And if you're fuzzy and vague and full of doubt, and you want to do something that the Torah says not to do, so you'll do it. Why not? I just don't have the kind of clarity that would prevent me from doing it, so why not just go ahead and do it? And so, but the point is that the reason why we would transgress a commandment is only because we lack clarity. Now, how is it possible to lack clarity? How can we possibly lack clarity? This is high stakes. This is big stuff. This is God. You can't get out of that one. Like, you can get out of a lot of things. I know a couple people in this room who are like Houdini in getting out of things. Yeah, and you're listening to one right now. I think one of the greatest things in my life was when I discovered Torah. I was 23 years old. I was a hippy, dippy, trippy guy, which also gets you out of a lot of things, because no one expects a hippy, dippy, trippy guy to do anything, which was really just a big manipulation I was up to. And one of the things I loved was meeting face to face with God meant, for the first time in my life, I have to be accountable. I can't get out of that one. And no matter what I might think of, I'm still, in the end, I will face my Maker. It's amazing. I know a lot of you think, like, that's not good. That sounds bad. But I think it is good, because I spent so many years getting away with murder. I mean, I got away with everything. And I get myself in and out of trouble so quick, and no one would ever know what happened. And I don't know, God gave me a special brain to perfectly figure out how to create a ton of trouble without anyone being able to locate the actual culprit. And anytime it felt like, now I'm stuck, now I'm finally busted, I would figure out some way out of that too. And that was my life. And that's really bad for someone's character, to live that life. There's no way to be married. You'll find a way out. No way to be a father, you'll find your way out. No way to hold down a job, you'll find your way out. Every single thing, no matter what it was, I'd find my way out of it. Oh, comes along God. There's no way out. And where are you going to run? Where are you going to hide? Right? You can run, but you can't hide, because it's going to catch up. And he's already caught up, because he's everywhere. He's surrounding you, and he's inside of you, and there's nowhere you can go where he's not. And finally, for the first time in my life, I actually committed to something. So it's really a beautiful thing. It's your chance to commit to something that's real. But again, let's go back to the clarity thing. How can we not have clarity? It's high stakes. Our lives actually mean something, and there's real consequence. I better get clarity. I have to have clarity. I can't leave Israel until I'm absolutely 100% clear. I can't leave yeshiva. I can't leave Aish until I know for a fact, because there's too much at stake here. If there's not a God, fine, I'll walk. If there is a God, whoa, I got to know. So how is it so many people just decide to go fuzzy? Why is everyone playing fuzzy-wuzzy when it comes to God? And the answer is, the reason we want to remain fuzzy is because as long as you're fuzzy, you don't have to do anything. You do stuff when it feels good. And when it don't feel good, you'll ignore it. We purposely remain fuzzy. Let's put it like this. We've shared this before, but take it like this. Imagine that you had absolute 100% and total clarity there's a God. 100%, like Moses had. God just gave you a freebie and gives you the full-on light show. And and gives you the full-on, almost like Sinai, I am the Lord your God, and fill in the blank with your name right there. And says your name. And you're just standing there just going, whoa. And all these people are around you going, did you hear what God just said to you? And you're like, you heard it too? And they're like, yeah, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. Now they have just as much God clarity as you do, but God just gave you the full-on freebie. If you had that level of clarity that there's a God, is there anything you wouldn't do for God? Is there anything you wouldn't do? Right? You'd do anything for God, right? Well, if that's the case, then you better remain fuzzy. Meaning, if total clarity means doing God's will fully, so then it's better to sabotage your clarity and stay fuzzy. Meaning, we're the problem. God is not the problem here. We're the problem. We want to stay fuzzy because we want to do what we want to do. And that is called basically, it's sabotage, it's self-sabotage. But our lack of clarity isn't God's fault. The kind of clarity I just described, where God would like come out and like give you your little miracle, it's not the kind of clarity you want, because what would happen?
Wouldn't have free will.
Lose free will. What else would probably happen after about a month or two?
You'd forget.
Yeah, it starts to dim with time. You know, you see the Jews at the giving the Torah lost it 40 days later. You know, they lost their clarity 40 days later. Wouldn't help so much anyway. And you'd lose your free will. Clarity is available. You want to give you an example of clarity? Full clarity? Here's an example of full clarity. Okay? Imagine this is Mount Sinai, okay? And the world's going to exist for 6,000 years. So it started back there. 2.5 millennia later, you got Mount Sinai. Okay, so that wall over there is creation, or at least Adam. This is Sinai. Okay? Now you open up the Torah, and the Torah tells you more or less what's going to happen. You follow the Torah, and it's going to go all the way to 6,000 years. Okay, where are we now? Tell me when to stop. Okay? Tell me when should I stop? Let's say right about here, okay? So this is going to be, okay? You are here on this map. Okay. So we're in the Sinai Desert, whatever, 40 years, okay? We build that's the first temple period here. Then the Babylonians take us out for 70 years. Okay, second temple period. And the Romans come along, knock us out. Okay, and then we go in this really long exile. Yeah? And then what happens here is the really long exile, and then right about here, all these like heavy-duty Kabbalists in the 1800s start sending their students to Israel. The Baal Shem Tov sends the students. Vilna Gaon sends the students. Yemenites are sending students. Like everyone's just kind of converging on the land, and no one can figure out exactly why, except their clairvoyant leaders are saying, you must take a boat to Israel. And, you know, it's time to come back. Okay? Then comes, oh, by the way, this is important. There's the Industrial Revolution here. There's the Enlightenment. Industrial Revolution, Enlightenment. It's all going on around there. Okay. Then you get the 1920s and the Zionist movement, the secular Zionists starts doing their whole thing. Then you get 1948, and you get the state of independence and everything. But we didn't get Jerusalem. Then you get 1967. You get Jerusalem. Jews are moving. This whole time, Jews are moving in and in and in. The population's going up and up and up and up. And then right about here, you get to a majority of Jews on earth are in Israel, which is, according to the Rambam, that's the ingathering of the exile. The ingathering of the exile is a halachic thing. It's a majority. And we got there right before Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so we're there. Okay, this is all going on. Now, if you follow Tanakh, and you follow it exactly like according to what it says is going to happen, which is all in this. Okay, don't forget in Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the Torah, it's talking all about God bringing us back into the land. It's all in there. So, what are the chances that God's going to drop us here and that we're not going to continue our way to Mashiach and Beis HaMikdash? Because it says we're going to be brought back, there's going to be a whole third temple period and a whole redemption experience. Okay? What are the chances that God's going to drop us there at this point? What do you think? God's got a perfect track record. Every single thing God said was going to happen has happened. The only thing left is we need Mashiach. What's Mashiach? some magical guy. Just a great leader. Just a great leader to lead Israel to, basically rebuild the temple. We got the ingathering already. We already got the land. That's Israeli territory. And all we need is a great leader who will humble the nations and ultimately rebuild the temple. We're there. There's barely anything left to do. It's amazing where we're at right now. And it's all basically God batting 1,000, like God with a perfect track record throughout history. You think God's going to drop us now? No way. It's definitely going to finish. Yeah, we're basically there. How do you like that for clarity? You see that? Like, what are the chances we're going to get dropped? I've given this to many birthright kids, a whole class on this subject. And I asked the birthright kids, who has any doubt that the destiny of the Jewish people is not going to reach its fruition? No one raised their hand. No one would doubt that. It's total clarity right there, just historically. And if you have any doubt that any of this is like, who says like any of this is real, just pull this board out of the way and you're staring right at David's temple. Right at King Solomon's temple. You're staring at it. We're here. It's not like this is mythology. It's all there. This isn't like some fairy tale that we're talking about in America in some religious studies class. Okay, it's right in front of your face everywhere you go. You're staring at it, right here in Jerusalem. So how can we ever do anything wrong? How can we possibly do something bad? And the answer is Yetzirah. We have Yetzirah, but you got plenty of ammunition against the Yetzirah at this point, because we're at the other point of history, and by beating the Yetzirah now, and just doing the right things and staying on board. It's kind of like where we're at right now? A good example would be a train that's coming into Central Station, Grand Central in New York City. Train's landing at Grand Central Station, and you're in the back car, and there's a schizophrenic person in the back car, and suddenly it's decided that the train will never make it. Meanwhile, it's a train that has 50 cars, and the first 45 are already in Grand Central. You're in the last car. There's 5 cars to get in there, and the guy starts going out the back exit, and the train's still flying. Yeah? And you're like trying to grab the guy and say, you're out of your mind, man. The train's already in Grand Central Station. And he's like, no, it's not. He jumps out the back of the train. He's like rolling in the tracks. And people are like, emergency people are running out to like get this guy off the tracks. And you're looking out the window just going like, that guy is cracked, man. And the train stops another like 50 feet later. And you're just kind of staring out the back window at the emergency people taking this guy off the track, and everyone's getting out of the train and getting on. And you're just like, what in the world? That's a good example of where we're at right now. Meaning all the cars have arrived in Grand Central, and we're just waiting for the rest of the train to just slow down and get in there. Yet, who's jumping out the back of the train? Who's jumping out the back of the train? Almost everybody. Not me. I'm definitely not. The point is, who's jumping out of the train at this point? Everyone. You can barely find anyone who's willing to stay in the train. And the question is why? It doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone jump off a train as it arrived at Grand Central Station? Why would anyone jump off the Jewish train? Why would anyone get themselves derailed at such an amazing time? Like the best possible time. And especially if you look at how hot the world's getting. The world's like going crazy right now. It's like we're totally there. And it says in the Torah also, it says the world's going to go insane right before. And there's going to be like massive wars and like all kinds of clashes between East and West. And that's exactly what's happening now. And everything's exactly according to plan. Yet people are like doing somersaults on the train tracks right outside a fast-moving train. So what's going on? How could it possibly be? And you ready for the answer? The answer is that there's so much clarity these days that the only way to have any free will with this much clarity is that the dark side has to go under the belt. The dark side has to grab you from, like, it's just got to grab you from, like, stupid stuff. Because it can't get you up here anymore. It can't get you intellectually. See, throughout history, they had communism and socialism, Marxism, they had all these isms. They had existentialism, like, you know, all these different isms would take you off of Judaism. Today, show me anyone who's got some ism that keeps them off of Judaism. Today, it's stupid stuff.
Liberalism.
Yeah, but it's not even that, though, because when you meet the actual liberalist, they're really just Bali Taiva. How do you say that?
Secularism.
Yeah, no, but this secularism is really not because of a philosophy. It's just pure lust. It's pure lust. Yeah, but it's pure lust. It's stupid stuff. So why? Hyphenism. So why would stupid stuff win at this point? Why would the stupid stuff win? You want to know why? Because this is also stupid stuff. It's so like, duh, like, we're here, you know, like, train arrived, you know, this is time, that's it. We're in the final stage of history, this is it. So, because it's so stupidly clear where we're at in history that only the stupidest stuff could pull someone off. And look how stupid it is. Look how stupid it is. Let's say you're at the Kotel. You're praying at the Kotel 20 years ago. Yeah. You're praying at the Kotel, and all of a sudden, I don't know, you have a Yetzer Hara attack for, like, I don't know, pork or, like, I don't know, prostitution, something like, you have some kind of Yetzer Hara attack, yeah? And you got to get it fulfilled. Yeah? What are you going to do? You're stuck. You're in Israel. You came to the wrong country. So, well, I guess you get a cab. You know, you get a cab and you'll drive, you know, I don't know, maybe 80 kilometers. You'll find yourself in Tel Aviv. Maybe you get the one thing's available in Tel Aviv. You want pork, you could go maybe 80 kilometers in the north. Maybe you'll find some kibbutz that's like hiding a pig farm or something, you know. Okay, go south to wherever that was in Beersheba. But you'll find it. You'll find it. You just got to travel. You'll find it. Hopefully it won't have worn off. Your desire for it won't have worn off on the drive. You know, the Egged bus you're in. You know. Today, you could be at the Kotel, and you pull out your cell phone to just simply. The waves are supposed to be 4 to 6 feet on Wednesday. Whoa. I surf. That's amazing. So. That's amazing. 4 to 6 feet. Whoa. So that's amazing news.
Does that ever happen here?
Goodbye, everyone. So you pull out your cell phone at the Kotel. Yeah, it happens a lot.
The waves are 4 to 6 feet.
Yeah, that's not even 40. That's 4 to 6 feet surfer lingo. It's more like 8 to 10 in real life.
Tel Aviv.
Yeah, it's like that all the time. Every storm. So anyway. He presses the wrong button, and he's transported to Amsterdam. The sickest, darkest, worst material that anyone could ever look at is right on his cell phone. Just because instead of hitting sitter, he pressed like hit her or something. I don't know hit her, and who knows what. But it was some like horrible thing, you know. And he's still at the Kotel. Forget 80 kilometers in an Egged bus. It's right. It's just it's crawling in and out of us. It's all over us. It's like, why is that all there? Because it's so darn obvious now that something really stupid and easy has to get you out. Something really stupid and easy has to pull you away. Shalom, everybody. Have a beautiful day.